Welcome. Tonight, we invite you into a peaceful corner of the universe, the Horus Heresy. In the vast expanse of the galaxy, humanity had emerged from the darkness of a fractured and war-torn past. The Emperor of Mankind, a being of immense power and intellect, had united the scattered remnants of humanity on Terra. This was the dawn of the Great Crusade, a monumental effort to reclaim the stars for mankind and establish a unified imperium. The Emperor was not just a ruler. He was a godlike figure, the culmination of humanity's potential, embodying both wisdom and unparalleled martial prowess. His vision was grand: to eliminate the horrors that plagued humanity, including the Xenos races and the chaos that had long held sway over the galaxy. To achieve this, he needed powerful champions, and thus he created the Primarchs, 20 superhuman beings, each a paragon of a specific aspect of humanity. They were intended to lead the Emperor's Space Marine legions, the Adeptus Astartes, into battle. However, before the Primarchs could fulfill their destiny, they were scattered across the galaxy by the dark machinations of chaos. The forces of the Warp, seeking to thwart the Emperor's plans, hurled the Primarchs to distant worlds, where they would grow and develop in isolation, unaware of their true nature. Each Primarch would ultimately embody unique qualities and characteristics reflective of their respective home worlds, shaping the legions they would later command. The Emperor embarked on the Great Crusade without them, leading the Imperial army across the galaxy, reclaiming planets lost to the chaos of the Age of Strife. The campaign was brutal and relentless, as the Emperor's forces fought against various Xeno species, rogue human factions, and the remnants of ancient technologies. Worlds fell before the might of the Imperium, their populations either subjugated or exterminated. As the Emperor continued his campaign, the first Primarch was discovered, Horus, the War Master. He had landed on the feral world of Chthoniya, where he had been raised by the local warlords, developing both cunning and a natural leadership ability. The Emperor recognized Horus as a powerful ally and appointed him to lead the Luna Wolves, a space marine legion. Horus quickly proved himself as a capable leader, earning the loyalty of his brothers and becoming the Emperor's favored son. With the reunification of the Primarchs, the legions began to take shape. Each Primarch brought their unique strategies, philosophies, and cultures, resulting in distinct and powerful space marine legions. The Emperor, along with his Primarchs, became a symbol of hope for the galaxy, leading humanity towards a brighter future. As the Great Crusade continued, notable victories marked the history of the Imperium. On the world of Davin, the Emperor's forces encountered the ancient and enigmatic war machines known as the Dark Age technologies. The reclamation of these powerful relics further solidified the Imperium's strength. The legions, bolstered by the technological advancements of the Mechanicum, faced the challenges ahead with renewed vigor. Yet not all was harmonious. The different legions, each with their own philosophies and cultures, began to develop rivalries and tensions. The Luna Wolves, led by Horus, were often seen as favored, which fostered jealousy among other Primarchs. Lorgar, the Primarch of the Word-Bearers, sought to spread the Emperor's message of unity through faith, often to the annoyance of the more pragmatic legions. This tension foreshadowed the fractures that would later become apparent during the Horus Heresy. The Great Crusade reached its zenith as the legions spread across the galaxy, encountering new allies and foes alike. The Emperor's vision seemed within reach, yet the seeds of betrayal had been sown. Each victory brought the Imperium closer to its goal, but the lurking presence of chaos continued to manipulate events from the shadows, waiting for the moment to strike. Amidst the triumphs, the Emperor began to withdraw from the front lines, leaving Horus and the other Primarchs to lead their legions. He focused his efforts on the more abstract aspects of governance and strategy, which created a vacuum of leadership. This shift would prove pivotal, as it allowed for the rise of individual ambition and power among the Primarchs. As the Great Crusade continued, the galaxy remained a theater of conflict, with the Emperor's forces marching ever forward, but whispers of dissent and betrayal began to circulate. The stage was set for the unfolding drama of the Horus Heresy, a cataclysm that would change the fate of humanity forever. Horus, the War Master and favored son of the Emperor, was a figure of immense charisma and skill. As he led the Luna Wolves into battle, his reputation grew, and he garnered the loyalty and admiration of countless warriors. However, beneath the surface of this golden facade lay the beginnings of a dark and tragic tale. The seeds of Horus's fall were planted on the moon of Davin, where the Luna Wolves had been dispatched to quell a rebellion. During the campaign, Horus was gravely wounded in battle. As he lay in a state between life and death, he was taken to a temple dedicated to an ancient, mysterious god. There, he encountered a group of dark figures shrouded in the chaos of the warp. These entities revealed the truth of the universe, that the Emperor, while powerful, was a tyrant who would not allow humanity to evolve and reach its full potential. They offered Horus power and knowledge beyond his wildest dreams, urging him to seize it. In this moment of vulnerability, Horus succumbed to the insidious whispers of chaos. The promises of power and strength appealed to his ambition, fueling a growing resentment towards the Emperor. Horus believed that his father was holding back humanity, and he resolved to challenge the very authority that had once inspired him. This pivotal moment marked the turning point in Horus's life, as he began to embrace the influence of the dark gods. Upon recovering, Horus returned to his legion with a newfound fervor, but he was not the same man. He began to question the Emperor's vision for the Imperium, believing that true strength lay in embracing the darkness. As he spread his ideology among his closest followers, Horus painted a vision of a galaxy where the Imperium would be united under a new order, one that would allow humanity to evolve unfettered by the Emperor's dogma. As Horus gathered his supporters, he reached out to other Primarchs, seeking allies for his burgeoning rebellion. Lorgar, the Primarch of the Word-Bearers, who had long harbored feelings of discontent towards the Emperor's refusal to accept the worship of him as a god, was one of the first to fall under Horus's sway. Lorgar's legion was fervent and zealous, devoted to the Emperor's message, yet they felt unappreciated and overlooked. Horus exploited this sentiment, promising them a place in a new order where they could spread their faith freely. Fulgrim, the Primarch of the Emperor's children, was another critical ally. He had always been obsessed with perfection and beauty, and Horus played to this desire, promising him that their new path would elevate humanity to heights previously unimaginable. Fulgrim's lust for greatness made him a willing participant in Horus's schemes. As Horus solidified his alliances, he orchestrated a series of betrayals. The first act of rebellion came at Isstvan III, where Horus lured the loyalist factions of his legion into a trap. He unleashed a devastating assault against them, intending to purge those who remained loyal to the Emperor. The result was a brutal slaughter that showcased the depth of Horus's betrayal. This battle marked the first significant loss for the Loyalists, igniting fear and confusion throughout the Imperium. In the wake of Isstvan III, Horus called for a grand council of the Primarchs, using it as a platform to further spread his message. Some Primarchs were swayed by his arguments, while others remained resolute in their loyalty to the Emperor. This division would splinter the once united legions and create factions that would forever change the course of history. As Horus continued his campaign of sedition, he turned to the forces of chaos for support, forging unholy pacts that granted him unimaginable power. The dark gods provided him with war machines and demonic allies, transforming the Luna Wolves into a terrifying force of destruction. The legion was renamed the Sons of Horus, a reflection of their new allegiance and purpose. The Emperor, unaware of the full extent of Horus's betrayal, focused on the larger threats facing the Imperium. He remained convinced that his sons would never turn against him. However, the whispers of rebellion grew louder, and Horus's influence spread like a contagion among the legions. The once loyal warriors began to question their allegiance, swayed by the promises of glory and power. As the galaxy erupted into chaos, Horus launched a full-scale assault on Terra. His legions, now bolstered by the traitorous Primarchs and their followers, marched towards the heart of the Imperium. The Great Crusade, once a symbol of hope and unity, had become a brutal conflict of betrayal and bloodshed. Horus, now fully entrenched in his role as the War Master of Chaos, led the charge, leaving devastation in his wake. In this climactic moment, the fate of humanity hung in the balance. The Emperor's dream of a united Imperium lay shattered, and the rise of Horus marked the beginning of the darkest chapter in human history. The fall of Horus was not merely a personal tragedy. It was the harbinger of the Horus Heresy, a cataclysmic event that would define the future of mankind and alter the course of the galaxy forever. As the flames of rebellion ignited across the galaxy, the divisions among the Space Marine legions became increasingly apparent. The once unified might of the Emperor's Astartes was fracturing, splintering into factions that would shape the future of the Imperium. The rift began with Horus's seduction into the embrace of chaos and spread like a contagion among his brothers. The first significant schism was evident in the Luna Wolves, now known as the Sons of Horus. Horus's charisma and the promise of power had ensnared many of his warriors, leading them to embrace his vision of a new order. However, not all within his ranks were willing to follow him into darkness. Loyalists like Garviel Loken, a valiant captain of the Luna Wolves, resisted Horus's growing ambition. Loken and his loyalists were caught in a maelstrom of loyalty and betrayal, struggling to reconcile their respect for their Primarch with the horrifying reality of his newfound allegiance to chaos. Meanwhile, the Word-Bearers, led by Lorgar, had fully embraced Horus's vision. Lorgar had long sought to spread the worship of the Emperor as a god, and Horus's rebellion provided the perfect opportunity to realize that ambition. The Word-Bearers became zealous champions of chaos, spreading their dark faith among the stars. Lorgar's obsession with religious fervor led him to corrupt many within his legion, turning them into fervent agents of chaos. Fulgrim, the Primarch of the Emperor's children, was similarly influenced by Horus. His desire for perfection led him down a dark path, culminating in the adoption of the worship of Slaanesh, the chaos god of excess and pleasure. The Emperor's children transformed into a legion obsessed with hedonism and decadence, driven by their unending pursuit of beauty and perfection. This shift would make them among the most dangerous and unpredictable of the traitor legions. The Iron Warriors, led by Perturabo, found themselves drawn into the conflict as well. Perturabo, always feeling slighted by the Emperor, saw the heresy as an opportunity to prove his worth. His legion, known for their siege warfare and heavy artillery, joined Horus, enticed by the promise of a place in the new order. The Iron Warriors began to develop a deep-seated hatred for the Loyalist forces, whom they viewed as obstacles to their rightful ascendance. The Night Lords, commanded by Conrad Kurz, were another legion caught in the chaos. Kurz, with his grim outlook and predilection for terror, found resonance in Horus's rebellion. He embraced the darkness and the fear that came with it, leading his legion into acts of brutality and violence. The Night Lords became notorious for their methods, striking fear into the hearts of their enemies as they fought alongside the traitors. On the other side, the Loyalist legions began to coalesce in opposition to the growing threat. The Ultramarines, led by Robot Guilliman, took a stand against Horus, vowing to uphold the Emperor's vision. the Iron Hands, commanded by Ferrus Manus, and the Salamanders under Vulcan, also pledged their loyalty to the Emperor. Together, they represented the stalwart defense of the Imperium against the encroaching darkness. As tensions escalated, Horus orchestrated a series of carefully planned strikes against loyalist strongholds. The first major conflict arose at Isstvan V, where Horus sought to eliminate the loyalists among his own ranks and solidify his power. He lured his most trusted loyalists to the planet under the guise of reconciliation. However, the loyalists soon found themselves trapped in a deadly ambush. Horus unleashed his traitor legions upon the loyalist forces, leading to a brutal and bloody battle. The loyalists fought valiantly, but they were outnumbered and betrayed by those they once called brothers. Garviel Loken and his loyalists made a desperate stand, determined to protect the Emperor's vision until the end. The clash on Isstvan V was devastating, resulting in the near-total annihilation of the loyalist forces. In the aftermath of the battle, the traitor legions celebrated their victory, but the cost was high. Many warriors were lost, and the gulf between the factions widened. The loyalists, now more determined than ever, rallied under the banner of the Emperor, vowing to seek retribution for the betrayal they had suffered. As the galaxy descended further into chaos, whispers of dissent spread among the legions. Some primarchs, like the stoic and honor-bound Rogel Dorn of the Imperial Fists, began to question their allegiances. The dread of betrayal lingered in the air, creating an atmosphere of paranoia and mistrust. The splintering of the legions would continue to have dire consequences. The once unified Astartes, now divided between loyalists and traitors, would battle not only each other, but also the horrors that awaited them in the depths of the galaxy. As the heresy unfolded, the fate of the Imperium hung in the balance, teetering on the edge of oblivion. The time for loyalty and brotherhood had passed, and the war for the soul of humanity had begun. As the fires of civil war raged across the galaxy, the siege of Terra began, marking the culmination of Horus's rebellion against the Emperor. The once great fortress of the Imperial Palace, a sprawling citadel on the planet Earth, became the last bastion of hope for humanity. The Emperor had long sought to protect his realm, and now, faced with betrayal from his own sons, the stakes had never been higher. Horus, emboldened by his victories and the support of several traitor legions, prepared for a full-scale assault on Terra. He had forged alliances with the forces of chaos, gaining access to dark sorceries and formidable war machines that would bolster his already formidable army. As he plotted the invasion, Horus rallied his traitor primarchs and their legions, each eager to seize their place in the new order he envisioned. The siege began with a series of devastating orbital bombardments. The traitor fleet, led by the massive flagship Vengeful Spirit, unleashed hell upon the surface of Terra, targeting the strongholds of the Imperial Palace. As the bombardments rained down, the once thriving cities of Earth were reduced to smoldering ruins. The loyalists within the palace braced for the inevitable assault, fortifying their defenses and preparing for the onslaught. The loyalist forces, led by the Emperor's most stalwart champions, quickly mobilized. Rogel Dorn, the Primarch of the Imperial Fists, took command of the palace's defenses. Known for his strategic brilliance and unwavering resolve, Dorn began organizing the remaining Imperial army and Astartes into a formidable defense. The Loyalists knew that their duty was to protect the Emperor and preserve the very essence of humanity from the encroaching darkness. As the bombardment subsided, Horus launched his ground forces. The sons of Horus, now fully devoted to their war master, led the charge alongside their traitor allies, the Word-Bearers, Emperor's Children, and Iron Warriors. Each legion brought its own unique strengths and capabilities to the battlefield, resulting in a fearsome and diverse fighting force. The traitor legions surged forward, intent on overwhelming the defenses of the palace. The imperial palace was a vast complex, designed to withstand the greatest threats the galaxy could muster. Its walls were thick, fortified with the most advanced technology of the time, and protected by a network of defenses, including powerful shields and weapons emplacements. Despite these advantages, the traitor forces were relentless. The sound of war cries and the clash of metal echoed through the once sacred halls as the assault began. As the traitors breached the outer defenses, the loyalist forces mounted a desperate defense. The Imperial Fists, renowned for their staunch courage and resilience, held the line against the advancing enemy. Dorne's strategic mind orchestrated counterattacks and ambushes, but the sheer number of traitor forces began to overwhelm the defenders. Each clash was brutal, filled with the fury of betrayed brothers. Within the depths of the palace, the remaining loyalist legions, among them the Blood Angels, Dark Angels, and Space Wolves, rallied to defend their home. Each per march led their warriors with determination, vowing to protect the Emperor at all costs. Sanguinius, the noble blood angel per march, inspired his men with his unwavering hope and valor, becoming a beacon of light amid the growing darkness. As the siege continued, the war escalated in intensity. Horus and his allies unleashed demonic entities from the warp, horrifying beings that struck fear into the hearts of loyalists. These creatures, manifestations of chaos, added a new level of terror to the battlefield. The loyalists fought valiantly against these otherworldly foes, but the tide of battle began to shift in favor of the traitors. In the midst of the chaos, the Emperor remained isolated in his golden throne, working tirelessly to contain the powers of the warp and maintain the psychic shields protecting Terra. His absence from the battlefield was palpable, leaving many to question whether he could emerge in time to save humanity. Despite this, his loyal sons fought with the knowledge that their father's will was with them, a flicker of hope against the encroaching darkness. As the siege dragged on, Horus devised a strategy to fracture the loyalty of the defenders. He sent emissaries to the loyalist forces, attempting to sow doubt and fear among them. He offered them a choice: join him in the new order or face annihilation. Some warriors, already shaken by the losses and horrors they witnessed, began to waver, caught in the web of Horus's manipulations. But there were still those who held steadfast. Garviel Loken, now a symbol of loyalty and resilience, rallied the remaining loyalists, urging them to fight for the Emperor and the Imperium. His impassioned speeches ignited a fire within their hearts, reminding them of the bonds they had forged and the sacrifices they had made. The spirit of brotherhood became a rallying cry against the encroaching shadows. As the siege continued, each side suffered heavy losses. The traitor legions pushed deeper into the palace, but the loyalists held firm, determined to defend their home. The battle raged on, a relentless tide of bloodshed and sacrifice, with neither side willing to yield. The siege of Terra had become a war not just for control of the Imperium, but for the very soul of humanity. As the loyalists fought to preserve the Emperor's vision, Horus and his traitor allies sought to reshape it into something far darker. With each passing day, the walls of the Imperial Palace bore witness to the fury of a galaxy torn apart by betrayal and ambition, setting the stage for the ultimate confrontation that would determine the fate of all. The Battle of Ispan III marked a crucial turning point in the unfolding saga of the Horus Heresy, an event steeped in betrayal and bloodshed that would set the tone for the conflict that followed. The planet Ispan III, a lush world located within the Segmentum Solar, had been chosen as the battleground where the loyalty of the Luna Wolves, now the sons of Horus, would be tested against those who remained faithful to the Emperor. Horus, the War Master, had cunningly orchestrated the events leading up to this battle. Having fallen under the sway of chaos, he sought to eliminate the loyalist elements within his own legion, ensuring that those who opposed him would be purged. He lured a contingent of his most trusted loyalists, including Garviel Loken and his warriors, to the planet under the pretense of a reconciliation and reassessment of their strategies. Unbeknownst to them, this was a trap designed to draw out those who would resist his newfound ambitions. As the Loyalists arrived on Istvan III, they found the planet to be a vibrant and welcoming place, with lush landscapes and thriving settlements. However, the atmosphere was thick with tension. The Loyalists sensed a growing unease among their brothers, a whisper of discontent that lay just beneath the surface. It was clear that something sinister was brewing, yet they remained committed to their duty, ever faithful to the Emperor. When the day of the battle finally arrived, the true nature of Horus's intentions was revealed. The sons of Horus, alongside their traitor allies, the Word-bearers, Emperor's children, and Iron Warriors, turned on their loyalist brothers without warning. The ambush was swift and merciless. Heavy artillery rained down on the loyalists from orbit, and the traitor legions descended upon them like a storm. The loyalists found themselves outnumbered and surrounded, betrayed by the very brothers they had fought alongside for so long. In the midst of the chaos, Garviel Loken rallied his forces, urging them to stand firm against the overwhelming tide. The Loyalists fought valiantly, determined to protect the ideals they had sworn to uphold. The clash of power swords, the thundering of bolters, and the roars of battle echoed across the battlefield as Loyalist and traitor clashed in a brutal melee. The terrain became a hellscape, littered with the wreckage of war machines and the bodies of fallen warriors. The Loyalists fought desperately to hold their ground, but the ferocity of the traitors was relentless. The Emperor's children, driven by their obsession with perfection and martial prowess, moved with fluid grace, striking down Loyalist warriors with ease. Meanwhile, the Iron Warriors employed their devastating siege tactics, bombarding the Loyalist positions with heavy firepower. As the battle raged on, Loken and his Loyalists found themselves pushed back, their once unified front crumbling under the weight of betrayal. The Loyalist forces began to suffer heavy casualties, and the reality of their situation became increasingly dire. Despite their valiant efforts, they were outmaneuvered and outgunned, caught in a trap from which there seemed to be no escape. In a desperate bid to turn the tide, Loken and his remaining Loyalists launched a counteroffensive, pushing forward against the traitors. Their courage inspired those around them, and the Loyalists fought with a ferocity born of betrayal. The air crackled with tension as they engaged the traitor forces, pushing against the encroaching darkness. However, the situation was bleak. As the battle wore on, Horus's strategy became evident. He intended to eliminate the Loyalists not only as a show of strength, but as a means of solidifying his own power. The treachery of the ambush was designed to instill fear and uncertainty among the Loyalist forces, breaking their spirit and convincing others of Horus's vision of a new order. In a heart-wrenching moment, Loken witnessed the full extent of the betrayal. As he fought to hold the line, he saw brothers he had trained with and fought alongside turn against him, their eyes filled with a fervor that had been twisted by Horus's lies. It was a devastating realization that left him grappling with grief and anger, the weight of loss heavy upon his shoulders. The culmination of the battle came when Horus, himself, arrived on the battlefield, a figure draped in the shadows of chaos. He issued a call to the Loyalists, offering them a choice: to join him and embrace the future he envisioned, or to face annihilation. This moment became a turning point, not just for the battle, but for the very soul of the Imperium. Some Loyalists faltered, their resolve shaken by the sight of their Primarch, the very embodiment of their hopes, now transformed into a harbinger of darkness. Despite the overwhelming odds, Loken and a few remaining Loyalists refused to yield. They fought with every ounce of strength they had left, pushing back against the tide of betrayal. Yet, one by one, they fell to the traitor legions. The battle culminated in a heart-wrenching climax as Loken found himself alone, surrounded by the corpses of his fallen brothers, both loyalists and traitors alike. The battlefield was a graveyard of dreams, and the ideals of unity and brotherhood lay shattered. The fall of the Emperor's children was a tragic descent into madness and depravity, one that illustrated the seductive allure of chaos and the consequences of unchecked ambition. Once known for their honor, martial prowess, and dedication to the Emperor's children, led by their Primarch Fulgrim, became one of the most infamous legions in the galaxy. The seeds of their downfall were sown long before the heresy began. The Emperor's children were always driven by a desire for perfection, constantly pushing the limits of their capabilities in battle and seeking to embody the ideals of the Emperor. However, this pursuit of excellence began to warp under the influence of chaos. Fulgrim, charismatic and ambitious, found himself increasingly drawn to the whispers of the warp, especially the allure of Slaanesh, the chaos god of excess, pleasure, and decadence. The turning point came when Fulgrim discovered a powerful artifact known as the Lair Blade, a weapon of exquisite craftsmanship and dark history. This blade, imbued with the essence of Slaanesh, held a sinister charm that captivated the Primarch. In a moment of weakness, Fulgrim succumbed to its influence, unknowingly binding himself and his legion to the dark desires of the Chaos God. The moment he grasped the blade, he felt the intoxicating power flow through him, and his sense of honor began to erode. As the Emperor's children fell deeper into the clutches of Slaanesh, they transformed. Their armor, once gleaming in the colors of the Emperor, became adorned with decadent embellishments and twisted motifs. The pursuit of perfection became a relentless quest for pleasure and excess, as the Legion turned from their noble ideals to embrace hedonism and cruelty. Their warriors became consumed by their desires, engaging in gruesome rituals and depraved acts that left them more monstrous than human. The transition from a noble fighting force to a legion of decadence and excess marked the beginning of their fall. The Emperor's children became infamous for their brutal methods and sadistic tendencies, reveling in the suffering of their enemies. They discarded the principles of honor and camaraderie that had once defined them, becoming agents of chaos and tools of destruction. In the midst of this transformation, the Emperor's children found themselves embroiled in the larger conflict of the Horus Heresy. As Horus rallied the traitor legions against the Loyalists, the Emperor's children eagerly joined the fray, driven by their newfound ambitions and the promises of power that chaos offered. They viewed the unfolding civil war not as a tragedy, but as an opportunity to spread their influence and reshape the galaxy in their image. The battle for Istvan III had already shown the brutality of the conflict, and the Emperor's children emerged as one of the most ruthless factions. They fought with a manic zeal, their newly acquired powers enhancing their already formidable combat skills. The once great warriors had become monstrous, driven by the need to prove their superiority over their foes. Each engagement became a twisted display of violence and depravity, as they sought to outdo one another in acts of brutality. However, their relentless pursuit of excess and pleasure had dire consequences. The more they indulged in the dark gifts of Slaanesh, the more they became slaves to their own desires. Their minds became twisted, filled with visions of grandeur and delirium. Their once noble goals faded into obscurity, replaced by a frantic obsession with hedonism that consumed their very souls. As the Horus Heresy unfolded, the Emperor's children faced off against loyalist forces, battling in a series of brutal engagements. In one such conflict, they confronted the Iron Hands on the planet of Istvan V. The Iron Hands, known for their stoic resolve and unyielding nature, became a target for the Emperor's children, who saw them as a means to prove their superiority. The battle on Istvan V was chaotic and bloody. The Emperor's children unleashed their warped fury, employing a mix of high technology and brutal tactics. They reveled in the carnage, their warriors driven by a manic euphoria as they engaged in combat. However, the Iron Hands, fueled by their own grim determination, stood resolute against the tide of depravity. During the battle, the differences between the two legions became painfully apparent. The Emperor's children fought with a reckless abandon, using their speed and agility to flank their enemies and strike with precision. Yet, their obsession with excess led them to underestimate their foes. The Iron Hands, equipped with powerful machinery and resilient tactics, adapted to the chaotic assault, weathering the storm of the Emperor's children's onslaught. In a critical moment of the battle, the two legions clashed in a brutal melee. Fulgrim himself confronted Ferrus Manus, the Primarch of the Iron Hands. The two titans clashed, their weapons clashing in a symphony of destruction. Ferrus fought with the resolve of a true loyalist, refusing to yield to the depravity that Fulgrim had embraced. Yet, Fulgrim, driven by his madness and the influence of Slaanesh, was a formidable opponent, fueled by the dark power he had come to wield. The battle raged on, but it became increasingly clear that the Emperor's children were losing themselves to their dark desires. Their tactics became erratic, driven by impulses rather than strategy. Their once unified force splintered into factions, each vying for the favor of their Primarch and seeking to indulge in their twisted pleasures. In a tragic twist, Fulgrim, blinded by his ambition and the lure of Slaanesh, lost sight of the ideals that had once defined his legion. The bonds of brotherhood that had once united the Emperor's children crumbled under the weight of their excess. The legacy of the Emperor's children was irrevocably altered, as they became a shadow of their former selves, consumed by their own ambitions. In the aftermath of the battles on Istvan V, the Emperor's children stood victorious, but at a great cost. Their numbers had dwindled, and their souls were forever tainted by chaos. The pursuit of perfection had led them down a dark path, and they had become agents of Slaanesh, bound to the very darkness they had once sought to vanquish. The fall of the Emperor's children marked a profound tragedy in the history of the Imperium. Once noble warriors dedicated to the Emperor, they became twisted reflections of their former selves, lost to the darkness that had seduced them. Their story served as a warning of the dangers of ambition untempered by honor, a cautionary tale of how the pursuit of power can lead to a descent into madness. As the galaxy continued to unravel under the weight of the Horus Heresy, the Emperor's children remained a stark reminder of the cost of betrayal and the seductive allure of chaos. The shadow of the warp represented a dark and ominous phase in the unfolding saga of the Horus Heresy, marking the growing influence of chaos across the galaxy. As the Civil War raged on, the Warpscape, the realm of chaos, began to bleed into the material world, creating a pervasive sense of dread and despair that spread among the loyalist forces and the general populace of the Imperium. This phase was characterized by the overwhelming presence of the Chaos Gods, their tendrils reaching into the hearts and minds of those caught in the conflict, warping them with fear and temptation. As the traitor legions marched through the galaxy, the influence of the warp intensified. This malevolent force began to manifest physically in the form of psychic disturbances and rifts in reality. Space became a treacherous expanse, with navigators and ship crews experiencing horrific visions and nightmares as they traversed the warp. These disturbances caused navigational errors, leading to ships becoming lost in the void or colliding with each other in catastrophic accidents. On the ground, the shadow of the warp manifested as a palpable aura of despair. Loyalist planets found themselves besieged not just by traitor forces, but by waves of psychic phenomena that unnerved the populace. Citizens experienced mass hysteria, prophetic dreams, and visions of doom, creating an atmosphere of paranoia and fear. Some began to question their own loyalties, wondering if the Emperor had truly abandoned them. This created fractures within the ranks of the Loyalists, sowing seeds of doubt that could be exploited by the traitors. In the heart of the conflict, the Primarchs continued to engage in their brutal warfare, but the influence of chaos began to weigh heavily on their minds. Robert Guilliman, the Primarch of the Ultramarines, sensed the encroaching darkness and sought to maintain order and unity among the Loyalists. He understood the importance of fighting not just against the traitors but also against the insidious influence of the warp itself. In contrast, Horus reveled in the chaos, seeing it as a sign of his burgeoning power as the War Master and the harbinger of a new age for the galaxy. As the Loyalist forces battled against the traitors, they were increasingly haunted by visions and dreams that revealed the true nature of the warpscape. Some began to experience disturbing encounters with demonic entities that whispered promises of power and glory. These encounters further destabilized their resolve, leaving many soldiers and commanders teetering on the brink of madness. The taint of chaos threatened to consume not just the traitors but those who stood against them. On the front lines, skirmishes broke out with increasing frequency as the traitor legions sought to exploit the confusion caused by the warp's influence. The Emperor's children, driven by their newfound obsession with pleasure and excess, led brutal raids against Loyalist positions. Their combat tactics had grown more sadistic, reveling in the suffering of their enemies and the chaos of battle. Each engagement became a gruesome spectacle, showcasing the depths of their depravity and the overwhelming power of chaos that fueled their fury. In the midst of this turmoil, a faction of Loyalists, led by the stalwart figure of Leman Russ and his Space Wolves, sought to resist the encroaching darkness. Russ understood that they were not merely fighting traitors but a growing tide of chaos that threatened to engulf the galaxy. He rallied his brothers, urging them to remain steadfast and focused on the true enemy, the forces of the warp that sought to manipulate and corrupt their souls. The shadow of the warp also brought about a series of horrific events, as entire worlds fell to madness and chaos. Loyalist planets began to report strange occurrences, including the emergence of cults dedicated to chaos, seeking to exploit the growing discontent among the populace. These cults, inspired by the promises of power and enlightenment, became active in spreading chaos worship and undermining the imperial authorities. Amidst this backdrop of horror and treachery, the Loyalists found themselves caught in a dire struggle to maintain their sanity and purpose. The onslaught of nightmares and the ever-present dread of chaos threatened to erode their resolve. Many warriors found solace in their camaraderie, drawing strength from their bonds with one another. The Brotherhood of the Astartes became a bastion against the encroaching darkness, as they fought not just for survival but for the very soul of the Imperium. The culmination of this dark chapter came with a decisive confrontation on the world of Cadia, a strategically vital planet that had become a linchpin in the ongoing war. The Loyalist forces, determined to push back against the tide of chaos, rallied their strength for a monumental battle against the forces of Horus and his traitor legions. As the Loyalists prepared for battle, the shadow of the warp loomed larger than ever, casting a pall over their efforts. The battle for Cadia was fierce and unrelenting. The Loyalists clashed with the traitor legions in a brutal melee that echoed the conflict raging across the galaxy. Bolter fire and the roar of war machines filled the air as both sides fought with unwavering resolve. However, the presence of the shadow of the warp cast a dark cloud over the battlefield, warping reality and distorting perceptions. Demonic entities appeared amidst the chaos, sowing confusion and fear among the ranks of the Loyalists. Despite the overwhelming odds, the Loyalists stood firm against the tide of chaos. Leman Russ and his Space Wolves fought valiantly, their ferocity unmatched as they pushed back against the encroaching darkness. The battle became a desperate struggle for the soul of the Imperium, as the Loyalists fought not just against the traitors but against the very essence of chaos itself. The chapter of the Shadow of the Warp became a testament to the resilience of the Loyalist forces, but also a sobering reminder of the ever-looming threat of chaos. The galaxy was a battlefield, and the influence of the Warp would continue to shape the course of the war, blurring the lines between loyalty and betrayal, sanity and madness, as the conflict escalated toward its tragic conclusion. The death of Sanguinius marked one of the most tragic and pivotal moments in the Horus Heresy, embodying the profound loss and sacrifice that defined the conflict. Sanguinius, the Primarch of the Blood Angels, was a figure of incredible beauty and grace, known for his noble spirit and martial prowess. He stood as a beacon of hope and courage amid the chaos that engulfed the galaxy. As the Loyalists prepared for the final confrontation against Horus and his traitor forces, the dark tides of fate drew inexorably closer. In the lead-up to this harrowing event, the siege of Terra had escalated, with the traitor legions pressing their advantage against the defenses of the Imperial Palace. The once mighty bastion of humanity found itself besieged by overwhelming forces, with Horus leading the charge against the Emperor's loyal warriors. Tension filled the air, as the Loyalist legions braced for a conflict that would determine the fate of the Imperium itself. Sanguinius, burdened by the knowledge of his destiny, was acutely aware of the shadows gathering around him. He had long possessed a prophetic vision of the future, one that whispered of his own demise and the fall of his brothers. Despite this knowledge, he remained resolute, determined to protect the Imperium and his brothers against the encroaching darkness. His commitment to the Emperor and the Imperium was unwavering, and he prepared to confront the horrors that awaited him. As the siege continued, the Blood Angels rallied under Sanguinius's banner. They were inspired by their Primarch's unyielding spirit, ready to face the approaching storm. The Legion was known for their fierce loyalty and ferocity in battle, but they were also burdened by the flaws inherited from their Primarch, which made them susceptible to the whispers of chaos. Despite this, Sanguinius worked tirelessly to keep his brothers grounded, reminding them of their purpose and their honor. The tension reached a boiling point when the traitor forces, led by Horus himself, launched a full-scale assault on the Imperial Palace. The gates of the palace trembled under the relentless bombardment as traitor titans and war engines rained devastation upon the Loyalist defenders. The Blood Angels fought valiantly to hold the line, but they were met with overwhelming odds. Sanguinius stood at the forefront of the battle, embodying the hope of the Imperium as he faced the advancing tide of darkness. As the battle raged on, Sanguinius received word that Horus had made a move towards the inner sanctum of the palace, intent on confronting the Emperor directly. Sanguinius understood the significance of this confrontation. It was not just a battle of wills, but a clash of ideologies that would decide the future of humanity. He felt a deep sense of duty to protect his father, the Emperor, knowing that the fate of the galaxy hinged on this struggle. In a moment of clarity, Sanguinius resolved to confront Horus himself. He knew that the War Master had become a figure of immense power and corruption, consumed by the whispers of chaos. Sanguinius recognized that to stand against Horus was to stand against the very essence of betrayal and darkness that had consumed so many of their brothers. He gathered a cadre of his most trusted warriors and prepared to face the treacherous Primarch. The confrontation took place deep within the heart of the Imperial Palace, in a chamber that pulsed with the weight of history and the essence of the Emperor's will. Sanguinius entered the chamber with his heart heavy but his resolve unyielding. The air crackled with tension as he faced Horus, who had been transformed into a monstrous figure, a reflection of the dark powers that now coursed through him. Horus, cloaked in shadows and malevolence, taunted Sanguinius, invoking the memories of their shared past and the bonds of brotherhood that had once united them. He spoke of the power that lay within the embrace of chaos, promising Sanguinius a place at his side if he would but yield. But Sanguinius, resolute in his commitment to the Emperor and the Imperium, rejected Horus's offer. He stood firm, a radiant figure of hope against the backdrop of despair, declaring that loyalty to the Emperor was worth more than any power that could be offered by the Dark Gods. The two Primarchs clashed with a ferocity that shook the very foundation of the palace. Sanguinius fought with the grace and skill that had defined his legion, every strike a testament to his unwavering spirit. However, Horus, now infused with the power of chaos, matched him blow for blow, wielding the immense dark energies that had twisted him into a formidable foe. The clash of their wills reverberated through the air, a battle of light against darkness. As the fight intensified, the reality of Sanguinius's mortality began to weigh heavily upon him. Despite his unmatched skill and determination, he could feel the dark forces surrounding Horus press against him, seeking to sap his strength and will. The struggle became a brutal dance, each blow exchanged resonating with the fates of their respective legions and the future of the Imperium. In a final, desperate bid, Sanguinius drew upon every ounce of his strength, channeling the hopes of his brothers and the loyalty of his legion. He unleashed a powerful strike against Horus, aiming for a decisive blow that could end the conflict. For a fleeting moment, it seemed that the light might prevail, but Horus, in a surge of dark energy, countered with an overwhelming force that sent Sanguinius reeling. With a devastating move, Horus struck a fatal blow. Sanguinius, despite his immense strength and resilience, felt the darkness envelop him as he collapsed to the ground, the life ebbing from his body. In his final moments, he glimpsed the sorrow in his brother's eyes, realizing that the brother he had known was lost to the insatiable hunger of chaos. As he lay there, Sanguinius's thoughts turned to the fate of the Imperium and the sacrifices that had been made in its name. In that moment of clarity, he understood that his death would not be in vain. His sacrifice would echo through the ages, igniting the fires of resistance in those who remained loyal to the Emperor. With his last breath, he envisioned a future where the light of the Imperium would endure, even in the face of overwhelming darkness. The death of Sanguinius sent shockwaves through the ranks of the Blood Angels and the Loyalist forces. The Primarch's sacrifice became a rallying cry for those who fought against the traitors. His legacy, marked by nobility and sacrifice, inspired countless warriors to rise against the tide of chaos. The loss of such a revered figure cast a long shadow over the Imperium, but it also ignited a fire in the hearts of the Loyalists, urging them to continue the fight against Horus and the forces of darkness. The Battle of Terra marked the climactic confrontation of the Horus Heresy, a cataclysmic struggle that would determine the fate of humanity and the Imperium itself. As the forces of chaos descended upon the Sol system, the Imperial Palace stood as the last bastion of hope against the overwhelming tide of traitor legions led by Horus. The skies above Terra darkened with the presence of warships, the air crackling with the tension of impending doom. Loyalist forces, battered but unbroken, prepared to defend the heart of the Imperium. In the weeks leading up to the battle, the siege of Terra had escalated into a relentless onslaught. Horus, emboldened by his victories and the influence of chaos, unleashed his legions upon the palace, determined to bring the Emperor to his knees. The once proud structures of Terra, symbols of humanity's achievement, now stood under the shadow of impending destruction. As the Loyalist defenders rallied, they knew the weight of their responsibility. The Emperor's life and the future of the galaxy rested upon their shoulders. The Loyalist forces were a mix of Astartes, Imperial Guard, and other defenders, all united by their commitment to the Emperor. Among them were the remaining loyal Primarchs, each determined to protect the Imperium and avenge their fallen brothers. Robot Guilliman, the Primarch of the Ultramarines, took command of the defenses, coordinating their efforts to withstand the relentless assault. He understood the need for unity and strategy, knowing that the Loyalists could not afford to falter in the face of such overwhelming odds. As the siege began, traitor forces unleashed a barrage of artillery and warp energy against the palace's formidable defenses. Massive war machines, such as the towering titans of the Legio Mortis, marched forward, their weapons devastating entire sections of the defensive walls. The Loyalists fought fiercely, but the scale of the assault was staggering. The ground shook beneath the weight of the conflict, as the palace walls crumbled under the combined might of the traitor legions. In the chaos of the battle, the valiant efforts of the Loyalist forces shone brightly. The Imperial Fists, led by their indomitable captain, Sigismund, formed the vanguard of the defense, holding the line against wave after wave of traitors. Sigismund's courage inspired those around him, and his fierce determination became a rallying point for the beleaguered defenders. The sound of bolter fire filled the air, mingling with the cries of the wounded and the roar of engines as battle tanks engaged in brutal combat. Within the palace, the Emperor's inner sanctum became a focal point of the battle. The Loyalist forces fought desperately to hold the line, knowing that the fate of the Imperium rested upon their ability to protect their sovereign. As the battle raged on, the Loyalist forces began to suffer heavy casualties. Each loss felt like a dagger to their hearts, fueling their resolve even further. In the midst of the chaos, Horus unleashed his most trusted warriors, the traitor Primarchs, upon the Loyalist defenders. Ongron, the Red Angel of the World Eaters, descended into the fray, his bloodlust unquenchable as he hacked through Loyalist ranks with brutal efficiency. Fulgrim, the Primarch of the Emperor's Children, wielded the powers of chaos to devastating effect, sowing discord and madness among the defenders. Their presence sent ripples of fear through the Loyalists, but it also ignited a fierce determination to resist. As the battle reached its zenith, the Loyalists found themselves fighting not just for their lives, but for the very soul of humanity. Sanguinius's death weighed heavily on them, a constant reminder of the sacrifices made and the importance of their cause. The Loyalists forged ahead, driven by the memory of their fallen brothers and the knowledge that the Emperor's vision for the Imperium must not die. In a decisive moment, Guilliman and his remaining loyal Primarchs joined forces to strike back against the traitor legions. The Loyalists launched a counteroffensive, pushing back against the tide of darkness that threatened to engulf them. In the heart of the battle, Guilliman and his brothers clashed with Horus himself. The War Master, emboldened by the powers of chaos, stood as a dark reflection of what once was, a brother lost to ambition and betrayal. The confrontation between Guilliman and Horus became the centerpiece of the Battle of Terra. They clashed with a ferocity that shook the very ground beneath them. Guilliman fought not just for victory, but for redemption, hoping to reach the brother he had once known. Horus, consumed by rage and the whispers of the dark gods, fought with a fury that matched his brother's. Each blow exchanged echoed with the weight of their shared past, the memories of brotherhood and loyalty torn asunder by betrayal. As the battle raged on, the Loyalist forces pressed the advantage, slowly pushing the traitors back. The tide began to turn, but the battle was far from over. Horus, realizing the precariousness of his position, summoned the full might of the forces of chaos, unleashing a wave of demonic entities upon the battlefield. The Loyalists found themselves fighting not just the traitor legions, but the very manifestations of chaos itself. In the midst of this chaos, the Emperor, in his final act of desperation, entered the fray. With a power that had not been seen for millennia, he stepped forth to confront his fallen son. The presence of the Emperor radiated hope and strength, revitalizing the Loyalists even as it cast a shadow of dread over the traitors. The battlefield, once filled with chaos and despair, transformed into a battleground of light against darkness. The confrontation between the Emperor and Horus became the climax of the Battle of Terra. As the two titans clashed, the very fabric of reality trembled. The Emperor, embodying the unyielding spirit of humanity, faced Horus, who would become a vessel for chaos. Their duel transcended the physical, representing the struggle between order and chaos, loyalty and betrayal. In the midst of their confrontation, the battle around them reached its peak. The Loyalist forces rallied, their spirits ignited by the sight of their emperor fighting for their future. With renewed vigor, they pushed back against the tide of traitor forces, forcing Horus's legions to falter. The Loyalists fought with an intensity born of desperation, determined to protect their emperor and the Imperium at all costs. As the battle raged on, Horus found himself pushed to the brink. The Emperor's power surged, illuminating the battlefield with a blinding light. In a moment of clarity, Horus experienced a flash of his former self, a reminder of the brotherhood they once shared. But the darkness that had consumed him proved too powerful, and he embraced it with a ferocity that furthered the divide between them. With a final, devastating clash, the Emperor unleashed his full might upon Horus. The blow resonated throughout the battlefield, shattering the fabric of the traitor's reality. Horus fell, his body racked with the energy of the Emperor's wrath, but it was a bittersweet victory. Though Horus had been defeated, the damage to the Imperium had been catastrophic. The forces of chaos, sensing their champion's defeat, began to retreat, but the scars of war would linger. The Battle of Terra left an indelible mark on the galaxy, with countless lives lost and the future of the Imperium hanging in the balance. The Loyalists had triumphed, but at an immense cost. The sacrifices made during this battle would echo throughout the ages, shaping the destiny of humanity in ways yet unseen. As the dust settled over the battlefield, the remnants of the Loyalist forces gathered to mourn their fallen brothers and honor the sacrifice of Sanguinius and the countless warriors who had given their lives to protect the Imperium. The Battle of Terra would be remembered as a moment of both triumph and tragedy, a turning point that shaped the future of the galaxy. In the aftermath, the Loyalists began to forge a new path, aware that the struggle against chaos was far from over. The Emperor, though victorious, was forever changed, bearing the weight of the losses he had witnessed. The echoes of the battle would resonate through time, serving as a reminder of the price of loyalty and the enduring fight against the darkness that threatened to consume all. The final confrontation represented the culmination of the Horus Heresy, a moment where destiny, loyalty, and betrayal converged in a singular, cataclysmic clash. As the dust settled from the Battle of Terra, the Imperium faced a grim reality. Though Horus had been defeated, the cost of victory was steep. The Emperor, gravely wounded and forever altered by the conflict, now stood at the precipice of an uncertain future, while the remnants of the Loyalist forces prepared for the fallout of their hard-won battle. In the aftermath of the battle, the Imperial Palace lay in ruins, scarred by the violence of the siege. Loyalist forces began to regroup, but the losses they suffered were profound. The remaining Loyalist primarchs, now painfully aware of the true cost of their struggle, gathered to discuss the future of the Imperium. Robert Guilliman, Magnus the Red, and others sought to understand what had just transpired and how to prevent such a tragedy from ever happening again. As they convened, the psychic echoes of the battle still reverberated throughout the galaxy. The Loyalists felt the lingering presence of chaos, which had not been vanquished but merely driven back, a dark tide that would surely rise again. The loyal primarchs understood that they must confront not only the remnants of Horus's forces, but also the threat of chaos that had corrupted their brothers. In the dark corners of the galaxy, the remnants of the traitor legions were in disarray, their leaders dead or scattered. The war had taken its toll on them, but the influence of chaos remained a potent force. Horus's death had created a power vacuum, leading to infighting among the traitor legions. The chaos and uncertainty bred desperation among the traitors, and many sought to solidify their power through ruthless means. The darkness that had seduced Horus continued to whisper promises to those who still clung to the remnants of his vision. As the loyalist forces gathered their strength, a foreboding sense of dread loomed over them. The Emperor's condition worsened, his physical form deteriorating as he lay upon the golden throne, a life support device keeping him alive. His presence had become more distant, and the loyalists feared what might happen if he were to succumb. They knew that his very essence held the Imperium together, and without him, the fragile alliance they had forged could shatter. In this uncertain atmosphere, the loyalist primarchs devised a plan to confront the remaining traitor factions. They knew that the loyalty of their remaining brothers would be critical in facing the looming threat. They sent emissaries across the galaxy to seek out those who had remained loyal to the Emperor, hoping to rally the remaining Imperial forces. Meanwhile, they prepared for the possibility of further conflict, knowing that the power of chaos could manifest at any moment. As they gathered their forces, they discovered that not all traitors had been driven to madness. Some among the remnants of the traitor legions retained a semblance of honor, recognizing the darkness that had enveloped Horus and seeking redemption. These warriors, torn between their loyalty to their fallen primarch and the realization of the chaos that had consumed them, became key players in the unfolding drama. They would be faced with a choice: to continue the path of destruction or to seek forgiveness and reunite with their loyal brothers. Meanwhile, the forces of chaos, sensing their moment of opportunity, plotted their resurgence. Demons and corrupted beings emerged from the warp, seeking to exploit the chaos left in the wake of Horus's defeat. The loyalist forces knew that the very fabric of reality was at stake, and they prepared to meet this new threat head-on. They understood that the final confrontation would not only determine the fate of the Imperium, but also the very soul of humanity itself. In a decisive moment, the Loyalists set their sights on the traitor strongholds that had emerged in the aftermath of the battle. They launched a series of coordinated strikes, aimed at dismantling the remaining traitor forces. The Loyalists fought with renewed fervor, fueled by the memories of their fallen brothers and the sacrifices made during the Siege of Terra. Each battle was a desperate struggle, a reflection of the stakes involved. They faced off against the remnants of the traitor legions, now a patchwork of factions vying for power in the wake of Horus's downfall. As the battles raged on, the Loyalist forces began to reclaim lost territory, gradually eroding the power of the remaining traitors. They faced fierce resistance, but their determination proved unyielding. With each victory, the Loyalists felt the weight of their purpose renewed, and the idea of a united Imperium began to take shape once more. In the midst of these battles, the Emperor's condition continued to decline, and his presence grew ever more tenuous. The loyal primarchs felt his absence acutely, and their resolve deepened. They recognized that they must stand together, not just as brothers in arms, but as guardians of humanity's future. The shadows of betrayal and ambition had torn them apart, but now they saw the necessity of unity in the face of the growing threat of chaos. As the Loyalists prepared for the final confrontation, they sought out the remaining forces of chaos, understanding that this would be the decisive moment in their struggle. They confronted those who had fallen under the influence of the dark powers, offering a chance for redemption. The battle would not just be for physical territory, but for the souls of those who had been lost in the darkness. The final confrontation unfolded in a vast and desolate landscape, a battleground that had been scarred by war. The the Loyalists faced off against the forces of chaos, who had rallied their strength in a desperate bid for power. The air crackled with tension as the two factions prepared to clash, the fate of the galaxy hanging in the balance. As the battle began, the Loyalist forces fought valiantly against the twisted manifestations of chaos. The demonic entities unleashed their fury, seeking to corrupt and destroy all that the Loyalists held dear. The clash of weapons and the roar of engines filled the air as the Loyalists fought with a ferocity born of desperation. They knew that this was their last stand, and they were determined to protect the Imperium at all costs. Amidst the chaos of battle, the Primarchs led from the front, their presence inspiring their warriors to fight with unparalleled bravery. They clashed with their former brothers who had succumbed to the darkness, each confrontation a reminder of the bonds that had once united them. The battles were fierce and personal, as each Primarch faced the echoes of their past in the form of those who had once fought alongside them. The final confrontation reached its apex when the Loyalists found themselves face to face with the most powerful demonic entities that the forces of chaos had to offer. The culmination of their struggles brought forth the might of the Dark Gods, who sought to reclaim the souls of those who had fought against their influence. The Loyalists, aware of the stakes, rallied their strength and pressed forward, fighting not just for their lives but for the future of humanity. As the chaos of battle swirled around them, the loyal Primarchs understood the importance of their unity. They fought together, channeling their strengths and skills into a singular force. The tide of battle shifted as they pushed back against the darkness, their resolve unbreakable. Each victory fueled their determination, driving them to press onward against the overwhelming forces of chaos. The final confrontation culminated in a titanic clash between the Loyalists and the remaining champions of chaos. The echoes of their past, of brotherhood, loyalty, and betrayal, resonated in the air as the final battle unfolded. In this moment, they were not just warriors. They were the embodiment of the Imperium's will to survive. As the battle raged on, the Loyalists began to sense a turning point. Their relentless determination began to erode the confidence of the forces of chaos, who had relied on the chaos of war to sow despair. The Loyalists fought with the memories of their fallen brothers urging them forward, their resolve unyielding in the face of overwhelming odds. In a final act of defiance, the remaining Loyalists channeled their collective strength into a single, devastating strike against the heart of the Chaos forces. With a surge of power, they unleashed a blow that shattered the very foundation of the dark entities, sending shockwaves through the battlefield. The forces of chaos, caught off guard by the unity and resolve of the Loyalists, began to falter, their dark energies dissipating in the face of the Loyalists' combined might. As the dust settled, the final confrontation had changed the course of the galaxy. The forces of chaos were driven back, their hold on the remnants of Horus's followers diminished. The Loyalists, battered but unbroken, stood together in the aftermath of the battle, their spirits renewed by their hard-won victory. They had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, but the cost of that victory would haunt them for generations to come. In the days that followed, the Loyalists began to rebuild. They understood that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but they were determined to honor the memory of their fallen brothers. The sacrifice of those who had fought and died during the Horus Heresy would never be forgotten. The galaxy would remember the struggle against chaos, the bonds of brotherhood forged in battle, and the unwavering resolve to protect the Imperium. The final confrontation was not just a battle. It was a testament to the enduring spirit of humanity, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, hope could shine through. The echoes of the Horus Heresy would resonate through the ages, serving as both a warning and a beacon for those who would come after. The Imperium had faced the abyss and emerged stronger, united in purpose and determined to safeguard the future of humanity against the shadows that threatened to consume it.